Hello and welcome to the RT Development Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rossignol, and I'm excited for another show. Today we have a guest who's been a friend for many years, someone I trained with growing up. Today's guest is Ryan Lehr, a Revive Performance official. Ryan was drafted in the 8th round by the Atlanta Braves. Also played with the Astros, Orioles, Angels, and in the Royals organization, and totaled 12 years in professional baseball. Now he's taking the knowledge he learned over the years from his mentor and things he learned himself and passing it on to the next generation. We're excited to have him on the show, give you guys some things that you can take away today and use when you're training. So welcome to the show, Ryan. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Glad we got to do this. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same. Not to sound too old, but I think known each other, I was probably 15, 16, 14 to 15 when we were training, when I was training at Reggie's. So it's 24, 25 years ago when I met you. So,
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. It was like, okay, I don't know if I want to count that high, but I was trying to remember because it was probably, I started going up there in '02. So I had to have met you right
so,
around the time in the beginning,
so
'02,
that was
'03.
15. Yeah. So I started like when I was 14 and, but yeah, that was 2002 would be like 15. And so, yeah. Uh, yeah, I remember all those weekends you would drive down from San Diego to come work with him, um, and then head back and yeah, just get to train around you and watch him work with you. Definitely picked up a lot of stuff and was lucky to be around.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Um, and so I think kind of just take that into like our first question. Obviously, Reggie Smith, who's we've also had on the podcast, is a huge mentor of both of us. And you've done some stuff past your playing career with Reggie and some coaching and training stuff. But what's just one thing that you use, whether you're with Reggie or not, that sticks out that you make sure to pass on to your athletes that you're working with, like something that you've taken away, and it doesn't have to be just movement or hitting base, but the mindset, things like that.
I don't know that I could put it into one thing. That is, it's still, it's a whole compilation of principles
Sure.
that Reggie taught me and all of us throughout the years. So, you know, I I utilize his teachings every day, and I've refined it in a way to make it more simplistic. I mean, it's always been simplistic, but just to kind of put my own little twist on it. But the principles he taught me, I teach every day, from everything from mechanics to mindset and to vision, because the vision's a major part of what we teach, a major one of the pillars. And, for me, the pillars I put together are mechanics, mindset, and vision. And that's a compilation of what we teach. And ultimately, when you align and put into harmony mindset, mechanics, and vision, you get what we call balance.
Sure. Yeah, and that's something that Reggie talks about a lot, and something that's really important. And we see guys, and we just see guys, work on all these like specific movements and things like that, but we forget what the main thing is: that posture, the balance, the thing that actually is going to help set you up for success. One other thing I would say, or wanted to ask on Reggie, that I think, um, and you kind of touched on it a little bit right there, but is Reggie always taught us, and I think was the one who could always make it so everything so simple, and how he could take the most extreme thing and break down simply and make it so us athletes could understand it and then actually put it into action. How do you think? How important do you think that is, or how much do you see guys, like they teach hitters, um, they make it so difficult when in reality you got to make it so simple for these guys? What are some of those traits that have helped him, but help you that you take towards teaching and keeping it simple?
Well, a Michelangelo quote that I love is, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. You got to keep it simple. You know, that's the thing that drew me to Reggie. RJ was my hitting coach in 2001, when I played with, for Steve Yeager.
Yeah.
And, RJ was just, Reggie Smith Jr. to everybody.
Sure.
That's Reggie's son. And he said, you got to come up and meet my dad. And, obviously Yeager being his longtime teammate told me the same. And the first day I got there and listened to Reggie, I realized that everything I had taught was wrong. My mind was just like, my brain left my head. And I had never in all my years heard somebody explain the complex and make it so simple. Because, whether you're training a major league hitter, whether you're training a kid that was your age when you came up to start with Reggie at 14 or 15, you have to make it simple. And as Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And that, I work every day to make things sound more simplistic. So Reggie's ability with his training and his diligence, and decades of work has enabled him to explain things like that. And what really separates what we teach is that we're teaching laws and principles. And that there's a foundation of that. It's all science backed, and most of what we're seeing now, Matt, is theory
Sure.
and interpretation. So because the simplistic system that he's taught and that I implement, and mainly about having your posture set and your body being in balance and having the right grip. And when you get all those things set naturally for the individual athlete, the swing ultimately takes care of itself.
Absolutely. So that kind of leads me to my next question, and I think we could go on all day about Reggie and what he's done, and I think all the stuff that we're going to talk about starts with stuff we've learned from him, but getting into like a little bit more general on the hitting side, I think, and you kind of touched on it right there. I think the one thing that gets lost a lot of time is we want to touch on all these things, but we forget the number one thing is, and what we call here, and I think same thing with you. I know you say athletic position, we say posture, whatever. It's all. I mean, we all mean the same thing, but we forget how important that getting that first principle of posture first before we worry about anything is. So for, I guess, for the listeners or for the hitter, one, how does he go about finding his optimal posture, and um, and yeah, so I guess that would be the start for going into the next thing.
Yeah, I say this a lot. I think one of the most major contributing factors to being a good hitter is having your optimal posture not only established but set in your stance. So how does a hitter go about finding that? There's a couple of ways, but if you were to just bend your knees and get in your stance and stick your butt out slightly to where your chest is over your knees, that's going to generally be pretty darn close to where your posture needs to be. Now there's some contributing
Sure.
factors such as body type. And this is funny, this is like the last leg of things that Reggie's taught me over the last 24 years about body type. We started this last year. We have ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph.
Yep.
So within those body types, there's some hybrids of both of those, but each one of those body types will have a different characteristic to where your posture would need to be.
Sure.
So, I don't see as many ectomorphs, the tall, slender like James Woods. It's not as common, but more endomorphs and mesomorphs,
Sure.
and then some hybrid of the two. So the reason posture is so important is that is the center of your swing. And your spine angle is what sets your bat angle, which ultimately sets your launch angle. So your launch angle is naturally tied into your posture. So if you want to hit more line drives, you want to start your posture ideally in your stance and maintain that spine angle or posture throughout your swing.
Absolutely. And I think one thing like what we talked to hitters about, and you correct me if you're seeing the opposite, but like we see guys, and they see these guys on TV who or they want to create more momentum. They want to start tall and kind of work into the baseball, and then so my point or the question would be, like how do we get these kids to understand that maybe that one time you create that momentum, kind of all of your momentum going into the baseball, starting high and moving. Like, if you run into that one pitch, you might have a little bit more into it, but like the consistency, the ability to just see the ball better each time. How do we get them to understand and believe in the less movement is going to be more?
So the way that I explain it is this: we don't see with our eyes, we see with our brain.
Absolutely.
The more head movement that you have, the more complex your swing's going to be, and the less consistent you're going to be. Now, there's some guys, and the tough thing is, kids will watch guys on TV that start tall, and then they get their posture set, so they want to try that and emulate that, but that can be dangerous. There's some pretty successful major league players that have had great careers who've been struggling the last year or two because of extraneous head movement.
Yeah.
So that goes to show you they're human beings too, just like the high school, college players. So you don't need momentum. The swing is angular or rotational. So
Sure.
you don't want the momentum, because ultimately, whether you have a leg kick, a toe tap, no stride, as soon as your front heel hits the ground, your body has to start turning. So, one of the things that came out of the lab study that Reggie did with Dr. Frank Jobe at UCLA's Jewel Stein Institute, they found that if you move your eyes more than 4 inches on the coronal plane, and for the parents of kids out there, the coronal plane goes between you and the pitcher in a line. That's CORONOL. If you move your eyes more than 4 inches, you're legally blind.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's hard enough to hit the ball as it is. So when your brain is moving that much, you're going to be in trouble, because your brain is doing all the predicting and calculating at the release point. Because one of the neuroscientists that did the original study is doing more, and they're finding out now that we're not going to be able to see the ball maybe 6 to 8 feet past the release point. And after that, you're ultimately blind. You could close your eyes.
Interesting. So, I guess a follow-up question on that is, and I would be, how, what are some ways to help train the vision or start to find ways to pick up the ball a little bit sooner? I know Reggie talked to us about like the window, and he used to have those colored, I think, or wiffle balls with a string that was from like the top of the back of the cage down. Like you had to track it each color with your eyes and go up and down the line. And I know that could be a couple of them, with some ways to train the vision, because it is a huge piece, and the ability to see the ball.
Yeah, so there's some training protocols that different doctors will do. I would say that the technique, I would first worry about in getting used to seeing the ball is, as he talked about the window, we call it eye switch. You want to look at the pitcher's face or the hat, and then shift or switch your eyes over to the release point. And the reason why you want to switch your eyes is because that shifting momentarily clears the brain of any thoughts. So that's where you're going to be able to see fastball, curveball, changeup. And, what we look at is the angle of the palm. I can't throw a fastball with my palm I can't throw a curveball with my palm facing like this, and I can't throw a fastball with my palm like this. Slider, you're going to see the hand angled more on an axis like that. So you don't need like crazy exceptional eyes to see that. It's just a matter of getting used to switching your eyes over and seeing it out of the pitcher's hand. So, in the last year or two, I've really focused more on vision, because mechanical problems and slumps, if you want to call it, in games aren't mechanical. They start out as visual.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you don't just show up to the park one day and get amnesia and forget how to hit.
Yeah. No.
So that visual inconsistency starts to lead to mental insecurity, and you start doubting yourself, and then maybe it's my swing. Let's go in the cage and experiment. Now you're cooked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's something. Even like I had I think it was a 12 kid I was working with the other day, 11, 12, and he was reacting really late, and I was like asking him where he was picking up the ball, and it was pretty much well after it was out of the hand. And so that was just one of the things, he had the eye tracking and getting into that window and working on that, and his timing started getting better. He started picking up the ball better takes, wasn't like rushing and then take, more controlled. And so I think even at the younger age, like they have, at least if they have a kind of a know what to do, like, oh yeah, if you look here, this is where we want you looking, they can start to see a benefit from it. And then obviously it's only going to be more important when you move up the ladder, you're facing better stuff, and the timing gets even less.
Yeah, no, it's the most critical thing when you step in the box to compete is your vision, because you could have Bonds, Gwynn, Williams, Pujols to swing, and it's not going to matter if you don't see it. So it's good that you're focusing on that, because I can tell. I always ask the hitters after they take a swing, how did you see that? You know, tell me on a scale of 1 to 5, how did you see that? And I can tell when they're late. You'll see more of that prey. I call it, with predator and prey. Fives, you want to be ideally 4, but nothing less, excuse me, ideally a 5, nothing less than a 4. And you see a different swing by the way the body works on the 4s and 5s. And when you start to get under 3 on the vision scale, you'll see a more defensive swing or a prey.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No.
like they're fooled. Even
Yeah.
on like you're doing soft toss, it looks like they're fooled.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and one thing, and this is kind of, and this wasn't necessarily in my question, but to make me think of this a little bit, is one thing you see with a lot of better hitters, and this kind of, I think, goes back to posture as well, but you don't see them out in front as much, right? They have a more controlled move and then just react. That doesn't mean they don't get fooled. They don't swing over a pitch or anything like that, but their ability to, um, have better posture, keep their weight a little bit closer to center, um, allows them to not be so far out in front like you see a lot of kids, especially. And then I think, what would you say? I guess I know a lot of it comes to posture, but what are some things that help contribute to that, and that you would say what you would give to a kid to help them stop doing that?
To stop from drifting.
Yeah, get it. Yep.
Yeah. So the one thing we can't teach is timing. It's something Reggie taught me a long time ago, and I'm sure you've heard him say that,
Sure.
because timing's a brain function.
Sure.
Some people think you can teach it, just can't, because we all learn differently, we all see differently, and we all react differently. So you have to look at the individual. So if they're drifting, that can be a visual thing, and also a confidence thing. If they feel like if they're afraid to be late, sometimes they're going to make that unconscious move where they're going to feel like they have to jump.
Sure.
So what I like to do if they're drifting forward, I'll take a bat, or a stick, and put it in between their feet, like where the center of their body would be. So you make the bat like parallel to their feet,
Sure.
and you just keep your head over the bat. They don't have to look down at the bat as they swing, but because you want your head to stay over center. What happens when your head starts to go forward too much towards the pitcher, that forward movement has to stop.
Sure. Yeah.
And in order for that movement to stop, your body has to lift up as you turn.
Yep.
So you start to lift up and change your posture. That means your arms have to go in the opposite direction to your spine. Now your swing gets longer. The arc of your swing gets longer. And additionally, even more complicated, it changes your vision and how your brain perceives objects in space, because you've just changed your symmetry. It's changing where you see the ball. So now we just got a whole nother set of problems.
Sure. No. Yeah. Absolutely. That makes sense. What's one thing, and I know there's many, I know, and we've touched on some things already, but because I know you work with kids, 12, I don't know, specific age, younger, all the way to pro guys. What's one thing that you would say that you coach the same with those younger guys to the older guys, that's just universal, doesn't ever change?
To teach them to be natural, just to be themselves. Not going to tell them to go hit like, I'll ask them who they may, the younger kids, who do you like to watch? And, I'll show them some characteristics of whoever that might be. But the problem is, when you try to imitate somebody, especially if they're not your body type, it's not going to be good.
Sure.
So the universal thing is just, getting them into balance, having them do what's natural. And, a major part of the framework we teach is using your legs. So that's, whether they're 12 or 30 years old, 35, you still got to use your legs if you want to compete.
Sure.
And stick around.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so with that, I would say, or I would ask, I know, and I touched on this in the podcast with Reggie, but there's not a ton of drills. But if there's one drill that you do that you like to use with your athletes, what would it be?
Yeah, as we don't just do a lot of drills. I mean, the only drill that he taught me was the Piazza drill with the L screen and the T that he did for Mike Piazza to shorten his swing. Um, but drill wise, I would say if you want to call it a drill, I call it an exercise. Could go both ways. You know, if you're not using your legs, and I know you've seen and done this, after you hit the ball, touch your back knee to the ground.
Yeah, yeah, we do it.
It
We do it with a lot of our guys.
Yeah, I mean, because what it's going to do, because so many hitters, whether they're, in the amateur 12-year-olds, high school or college guys, they're lifting up a lot with their bodies, and it's typically because of something they were taught and they just don't know any better. So you start to lift up, you're not leveraging the ground, which is your power source, and the power supply is your legs. So after you hit the ball, you can just keep turning and then touch your knee to the ground. That's going to force you to use your legs and your big muscles.
Absolutely. Yeah, do that a lot. Call it just to make it easy. We call it the lunge drill. So hit it,
Yeah.
lunge down, lunge up, and yeah, I with all ages, as long as like the guys somewhat strong enough to get back up. Some of the younger ones, but
Yeah, because that also, it's funny you say that, because I'll tell, like, at least the 15-year-olds that are working out, that do like to go to a place like yours. It's like doing a walking lunge.
yeah,
Like ultimately, you're going into a lunge position.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, next thing, like I mean, obviously after posture, after that front foot is down, the next most important thing is rotation. What are some of the things that you like to focus on when trying to clean up rotation?
yeah. So the rotation part is critical, and it's kind of we've gotten to this point where there's people, as you see, that are in the anti-rotation club, which I can't figure out, and your hips and your body have to turn because the swing is angular.
Yeah,
I did this post a while back, and Reggie he's not AI savvy, so I told him about Chat GPT and Claude and all that. And I actually type, if you go in there, it'll trip you out. Type in, is a baseball swing rotational or linear? It's wild, and it says that a swing is angular or rotational, that swings around your body with a stationary axis. And I was like, huh, interesting. That's exactly what a swing is. So what starts that, and this came out of the EMG study that Reggie did with Dr. Job, is it starts in the pivot. It all starts from the ground and goes up. So, some people might think that you don't want to squash the bug, but in actuality, it's a pivot. And when you turn your pivot, your foot, it works up, the knees, the hips, up to the pelvis, and everything else going north through the trunk, the chest, shoulders, out through the hands. You have to turn. So how do we do that? Well, you pivot, maintain your posture, and just let your body rotate around your spine. So for me as a right-handed hitter, if I'm hitting an inside pitch, I have to be able to face left field at contact with my chest and belly button so that I can hit that pitch at the right point of space. If I'm left-handed, I got to face right field at contact when that ball's on the inside corner. So it's just what happens with whether it's Jose Altuve or the Judge, the biggest guy. It's a
sure,
universal thing where we have to turn enough to where we're going to face and hit the ball relative to where it's pitched.
absolutely. And is there anything you like to do to help athletes improve their rotation?
I don't get into that. That's I leave it up to gentlemen like yourself to work on strengthening core and mobility. But what we found in the balance study is that when you have optimal posture and stance width, you'll be able to rotate and turn. I don't look at any of the other exercises, because I know if you get into balance and just let your body turn, your swing takes care of itself.
Sure.
And again, body type will have an effect on that. So
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Uh, and I think the the better if you look at, like you said, the Altuves or the Judges. Altuve is able to do what he does because he's able to rotate so efficiently.
yes, 100%.
Uh,
And people think that he does the scissor thing a lot, and while he may do that, you have to look at the cause. Mainly, he does it sometimes not all the time, because his stance is closed and he's off the plate. So if you think, if he's off the plate, he has to step across his body a lot. So if his left foot is going towards the plate, something has to go in the opposite
Sure.
direction sometimes, depending on what he's looking for, how he sees it, and where he perceives the ball to be in space. You won't see him do that scissor move on fastballs inside. He turns.
Sure.
Absolutely. And he uses his legs.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
they say, he's 5'5", 5'6".
Yeah.
It's bombs.
No, he does.
Yeah.
It's not like he's not. It's not one or two. I mean, he puts up 20 a year, so it's not by accident.
Not by accident, no doubt.
Uh, I think. Yeah. I mean, we. I think there's a. I don't know the best. We've made hitting very complicated. We want to talk about all those things instead of finding those couple things. It's usually one or two lowest hanging fruits that clean up everything else. Posture, balance. I know it's something it probably won't get a ton into here on the podcast, only because it's a lot deeper. But the grip stuff, I know how important that stuff is, and stuff we've implemented with our athletes, especially like our high school and up athletes, with the grip. And so, if you're out there and you're listening, like that's definitely something I would recommend looking into. But yeah, posture, balance, those three things, and grip. You get those things right, and you're consistent with it. You'll be a lot more consistent with rotation, and then also ball striking or bat to ball skills. So
Yeah. So, it's when you align those things, you're going to tend to have more success. You're going to have more precision, accuracy, and power.
sure, it's almost like or I shouldn't say, because Reggie was definitely ahead of his time with all this stuff now, with all the tech and everything we have now, right? But golf also has kind of been ahead of us with all this like measuring and things and now we're just taking. I don't know if taking is the right word, but using stuff that golf got right early on that now with the measuring, the grip stuff and the balance and some of that stuff. So
Yeah. So I would say, the technology is only validating the stuff that we learned over 20 something years ago
sure,
from Reggie. As you said, he's way ahead of his time. And, unfortunately, golf has utilized technology with more wisdom than we have in hitting. And I think, the use of technology has made hitting regress
sure,
when it could be used to help make
that's
progress forward.
100%.
And unfortunately, I think they're looking at the wrong stuff. See, what the technology gives us are effects. What the data gives us are effects, and what's been lost is the cause. How do we improve that? How do we improve exit velocity? How do we improve launch angle? And unfortunately, people are chasing those as a cause when it's an effect, and that'll
Absolutely.
happen naturally.
Yeah, it's what I talk about it with our coaches every day. It's like the whatever tech we're using, it's giving us the outcome, but it's not telling us why that outcome happened. We still have to use our eyes to help the athlete fix why that outcome was what it was, and ensure that we look at the outcome, look at the video, or watch the athlete see it wasn't what we wanted and make an adjustment, and then hopefully that now the outcome improves. And now, okay, so yeah, we still have to use our eyes, we still have to watch, we still have to see what's going on so we can improve the actual outcomes that the data is giving us. It does give us faster, like instant information. It's just now we just have to use it the right way.
That's correct. And there's a lot of theories about how to use it. I'll just leave it at that.
Sure.
And far too often it's detrimental to the athletes. And as I say, it's not a lack of ability that makes players stay stuck in mediocrity. It's just poor information.
Sure.
So, and
Yeah.
that's why one of the first things Reggie taught me is I'm going to teach you to be the best coach you can be, because we have to become our own best coach to understand it.
And so that was kind of leads into my last kind of topic here, and it was the mindset. But I think that's a huge piece of the mindset is, yeah, it's one of the things I always remember. One of the first times talking to Reggie, same thing is like my job is to make you your best coach because I can't be out there on the field with you. And I guess for you, what are some of the strategies that you go do to help your athletes become their own best coach?
So when I first start out for them, I ask them a series of questions because I think, the quality of the questions you ask will direct the quality of your life. So it's not giving them the right answers, it's answering the questions so that they can figure it out. And that's what I've really learned to get a little better at throughout the years. And so um, with the mindset stuff, that when you understand what you're doing, because we teach reels, not feels. If you teach them what they're actually doing and how it works and what the swing means, they can understand it. When you can understand it, you can be more confident because you know what's happening with your swing. If you don't understand your swing, you'll never master it.
Sure.
And so, confidence comes from competence. Competence meaning your ability to execute something. So when you get competent at something and you're executing your task consistently, you'll get more confident. So the mindset you have to be is to work smart, not just hard, and to prepare yourself and to understand what you have to do and fix your swing. And the big things that we teach the hitters to do is to become unconsciously competent. So the 4 levels of learning, this is really important. The first level is unconscious incompetence. Like if you start playing the piano or the guitar, that's the first level. You just sit down at the keyboard, you don't know what you don't know. You're unconsciously incompetent. That's the first level. The second level is conscious incompetence. That means you know that you have to do something, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
You're thinking about doing it, okay? The third level is conscious competence. You can do the thing, but you have to think about it. Like if you ask the greatest guitarist or the pianist, they don't think about where they're at or what scales, they just feel it.
Yeah.
You keep if you're throwing, if we're facing 95 and you're thinking about mechanics. So the fourth level, which is mastery, is unconscious competence. You want to be able to step in that box and execute your task without conscious effort. And that's what I call mastery, which is the ability to execute effortlessly without the use of conscious resources. You've got to be able to get there.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I think you touched on something there in the beginning that is like, you see kids, they see something on social media, and not saying I agree with this, but there's just say they say, oh, I need to work on um, hip shoulder separation. I need to work on my, you know, bracing against my front leg, whatever they find. But
Yeah.
they see these things but don't actually understand why.
Yeah.
And so then if they don't understand the why or what, even regardless if it's right or wrong, my point being, they don't know why or what they're doing. How are they going to be able to fix it when they need to, uh, when they're out there on their own, when a coach isn't there, especially in the batter's box, whatever. So I think that's one of the biggest things we see with uh, with guys is, yeah, they see stuff on, and
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, we as a from like here we put out stuff on social media too to help guys, but it's still on you to understand why that stuff is important versus just taking that stuff and just trying to do something without understanding what it is and why you're trying to do it.
You got it. So, you got to be careful experimenting, which is what you were just explaining. Because you see something like, oh man, I didn't feel good for a game or two. Let me try this.
Yeah,
Now you're just taking that 6 foot hole and making it deeper. Now you're 20 feet deep. So you have to practice with a purpose.
sure.
So why and purpose meaning why? Why are you gonna work on hitting the ball the other way? Why do you want to, you're having troubles pulling the ball, you're late. Why do you want to work on that? So you have to be able to get to that point where you're practicing with a purpose. So go take 40 good swings, not 300 swings, just to
Sure.
make it look like we're working hard. So, what the reason why you want to have that purpose and why you're doing, because once you know why, you'll know how.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
And yeah, 100%. And it's funny, you talk about bracing off the front leg, and when one of the first things Reggie taught me is to bend the front knee after contact. And I thought he was crazy like everything else in the beginning. Like I looked at him like he had a head of a dragon with wings. And I couldn't refute it, and that's one of the things that came out of the balance study, the EMG study with Frank Jobe is, that if you keep the front leg slightly bent at 15 degrees, you maximize your ground force and power. That's why you'll see the best hitters, Pujols mastered it. After contact, that front leg bends and you sink. That's how you use your legs,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, we talk. I want to say it was 2 days yesterday or the day before. I was talking about an athlete. Like he was kind of saying the same thing. I need a brace, and I was like,
Yeah.
it'll naturally brace that contact, but then it needs to release. If you're locking out, and then now your body's gonna pop up, your hands are gonna roll over early because you can't keep rotating or keeping that battle on that arc, and
Mhm.
so yeah, that ability to let that knee release so everything else can
Yes.
keep going.
What you just explained with the knee bracing is an effect.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
being taught as a cause because this is the hit the brakes, anti-rotation kind of thing. And unfortunately, how can I say it? If I was to hand the bat to one of those coaches and told them to go hit 95, they're not going to do that because you can't. The last thing you're going to be thinking about is bracing your front leg
Sure.
when you're facing a
Yeah,
guy
it has
throwing
to
hard. You're
just.
just, yeah, it's just now you got to turn. And, I'll end with this on the same that people think that over rotating causes you to pull off, when in fact it's not rotating enough that causes you to pull off.
Sure.
100%, because your shoulders actually have to keep turning. What you described a minute ago, when the front leg locks out, it forces your shoulders to stop turning, and then your hands are going to have to release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, any other? Because I know you've been talking a lot about the mindset part. Any other things you try to implement with your athletes to help them with the mindset piece?
Yeah. So, if you saw the book sitting in, I got stupid amount of books. When I don't have my son, that's all I do is read. So, the mindset is the maker or breaker. That's what separates you from everybody else. That's what separates you from being average to great. So it's mindset is about your perceptions and how you look at things. What's your relationship with failure? You went 0 for 4. How are you going to be? If if you went 4 for 4 and 0 for 4, are you the same guy?
Yeah.
So I wasn't.
Well,
so
you still
so
are, but not mentally.
correct. Yeah. I mean, it's just the best players I played with had that even keel. You wouldn't know if they were 4 for 4 or 0 for 4 because they knew that, okay, it's part of it. So you have to be okay with failure. Failing doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you didn't get a hit. So, visualization is a big part of it too, because, the way the mind works, when you visualize yourself doing something, your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And, the best athletes from Djokovic to Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods, Mookie Betts talked about this, about visualization. And Barry Zito was doing this. He was facing the lineup in bed the night before he pitched, going through the whole lineup in his mind. And was he 20, 22 and 6 or something like that in 02? He won the Cy Young. But anyways, your mind is such a powerful thing, but most of us use it to keep us stuck rather than to get
Sure.
us to go where we're capable of going. And it does that by default because our brain is built for survival, not for comfort. So, but a lot of athletes, when they get into the box, their chatter or their self-talk is poor. A lot of times they're gonna, and you've been there and I've been there too. I have to get a hit. Don't strike out. You say that stuff, you're done.
Sure.
What you want to say is, I'm going to hit this ball hard. I'm going to hit this ball hard. Because once the ball leaves the bat, you have no control over that. So the only thing you control in the box is your attitude and your effort, and that's it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Actually, let me ask you. Well, before we get into our rapid fire round here, just because I think hope maybe some kids or athletes will get something from it. What would you say? If you had 3 books you would recommend to
Ooh,
an athlete, what would it be?
ooh. All right. Well, first one I would read is what I'll send these to you. What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Chad Helmstetter. It's a really great book that talks about your self-talk. And this was written years ago and re-released and revised. It's great about self-talk. Second book would be The Gap and the Gain by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Dr. Hardy's a organizational psychologist, and it's a technique that his mentor Dan Sullivan taught him. The gap and the gain is how you compare yourself. When you're in the gap, you're comparing yourself to other people. You're comparing yourself to external resources. When you're in the gain, you're comparing yourself to you before. So that's a really tough thing in baseball. And I would say, number three, I would say this is another really good one called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. It talks about developing an alter ego. Todd Herman was the coach of Kobe Bryant, who helped him come up with the Black Mamba. Because we all have an alter ego, when you show up on the field. So it helps you become a different person when you go to compete. So those three are really good books. They're not long, they're powerful. The more you read, the more you lead.
Sure. Absolutely. Love it. All right. Now go into our rapid fire piece here. One thing you wished when you were in high school that you would have done differently.
I wish I had Reggie earlier, but I wish I would have learned and had those resources and wisdom to work on myself,
Sure.
to work on my mindset. Because I just showed up every day hoping I'd do better. My whole career too, 12 years. So I wish I would have been more focused on who I was becoming and not what I was doing.
And then I'll ask the same question. What's one thing you wish you would have done different in Pro Bowl?
Oh,
Or
100%.
learned. Yeah.
It was the mindset. I didn't stay stuck in the minor leagues because of ability. It's because of this. So, no, I wish somebody would have said, "Hey, Ryan, who do you have to become to be a big leaguer and stay there?" So I was working hard on my technical skills, but I wasn't working hard on my mindset and learning those other skills to grow myself personally.
What favorite hitter to watch in today's game?
In today's game, probably, boy, it's tough. I mean, there's a couple. I mean, I like watching Ohtani. Um, I mean, Pujols was my gold standard, but today's game, Ohtani left-handed and right-handed. I like watching Vlad Jr.
I like it. Obviously we know about Reggie. Did you have any? What was one other mentor that helped you throughout your pro career?
Um, I had several. I mean, Brian Snicker, the Braves old manager, was huge for me, and he helped a lot of us Braves guys. And the cool thing is, like his wife texted me a couple of weeks ago because now he's going to be able to go on summer vacation for the first time since he was a teenager. Um, you know, we we were the inaugural season in 1999 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So they're gonna do something for him in June. So he was a guy like he believed in us more than we believed in ourselves. And he stayed in touch with all of us, even though hell, we haven't been around him for 20 years. And so he made a big impact on us, and still continues to impact the guys he's been around, even though he's not managing there anymore.
Very good. What's one thing every young coach should learn?
The one thing every coach should learn is to work on yourself harder than you do on your job. Work on you, because you can't become a better coach unless you grow with who you're being. So you can't lead more and coach better until you become better.
Last thing, uh, when you're working with an announcer, what's the first thing you focus on?
Well, the first thing I focus on, I'll watch them take swings and I just evaluate, and I can tell within two swings what they've been taught. I can maybe one swing. The first thing I do is I ask them questions, and in asking those questions, they realize what they have to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. It a lot of valuable stuff, and something I wish more kids got to learn this type of training or hitting philosophy.
Yeah, that's why I keep doing what I do, brother. And, I'm, working more to use technology where I can work with kids all over the globe and make more of an impact, because this stuff really does need to get out there more. So next thing I'm doing, by the way, is Reggie's told me for years and influenced me, but I'm putting together something to coach the coaches. So that's coming soon.
Nice, very awesome,
Yep.
very good. Well, I
Yep.
was gonna ask you, where can guys learn more from you and about you?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Revive Performance Official. I'm still the Pure Swing on Facebook. I have to change the name. And then on X, I'm Revive Performance SD, like San Diego.
Yep, yep,
So
awesome,
I'm not on X as much. I'm mostly on Instagram. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate it. It was good, a lot of valuable information, and so I definitely think there's a couple things that parents and kids could take away and execute on their own. But with that, we appreciate you watching and listening to the show. If you want to get a hold of us, you can always email us at rossistraining.com or our website. Also on Instagram at Rossi's Training. And until the next one, thanks for listening.